This hour of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by my good friends at Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold is a 5-star rated gold company with one-of-a-kind customer service. And when it comes to gold and precious metals, Advantage Gold is the only company I'll work with. Call Advantage Gold today and make sure you let them know that Mark Levin sent you. And now, let's begin.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. You know, I mean, I listened to this president's speech, such as it was. Obviously, every syllable they went over, his staff went over, the campaign went over. This has actually been going on for months. It's getting worse and worse. Finally, he says something today. But what did he say? Is this guy a profile in courage? Is this one of the great speeches in American history? Was this a speech that met the moment? Was this a speech that called out the perpetrators? We understand we're a nation that believes in free speech. He doesn't. It's his attorney general that issued that memo against parents and urged all elements of the Department of Justice to monitor parents. It's his Department of Justice that goes after pro-lifers who dare to peacefully protest at abortion clinics. It's his FBI that sought to secrete itself into the Catholic churches around the country. It's his administration, as reported by independent journalists. They use virtually every agency, department of the federal government to censor speech. It's his administration that created that committee on disinformation. He doesn't believe in free speech. And we, the American people, we know the difference between free speech and violence. We know the difference between free speech and riots. We've listened to Biden and his ilk in and out of the media lecture us about January 6th, day in and day out. The protesters who were on the lawn of the Capitol building, not even in the building, who broke nothing, did no damage. They're now rounding them up and prosecuting them with the support of federal judges in the District of Columbia, with the support of the media. How are they any different? They're different in a lot of ways. They love America. They're not protesting against America. The Islamo-Nazis, the Hitler Youth, and the Marxists, they hate America. Yes. So books are being thrown at people in Washington, D.C. who are doing hard time. Not so with the Hitlerians and the Marxists and the Islamists. Not so. And again, with the moral equivalency, you want to know why? Joe Biden is a moral chameleon. He has no principles other than his power and his desire for wealth. And not the good old way, through connections, through his office. So I sat there and I listened to him. This is a man who has enormous power. This is a man who can order the Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Division in the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United States Marshals, the Department of Education, the Office of Civil Rights, the Department of Homeland Security. This is a man who could have ordered all of them and more to stop the funding from Communist China, from Islamist Qatar, from the Hamas Nazi network into our country. This is a man who could have told George and Alex Soros, stop funding these organizations. Could have told his buddy Noam Chomsky, cut it out. Could have directed the federal government to investigate the billionaires who are using dark money contributions, scores of front organizations to launder their contributions, to do what you see being done in the streets. But he didn't do any of that. He didn't do any of that. I was thinking of playing his speech for you. 4 minutes. That's not going to happen. I correctly summarized it. You want to listen to it? Go ahead. 4 minutes. One of the greatest, shortest speeches in American history was the Gettysburg Address. One of the shortest inaugural addresses was Lincoln's second inaugural address. The shortest was George Washington, who delivered it in writing to Congress. They said monumental things. They said things that are forever remembered. They said things that will go down in American history. Few words, but every one, pearls that struck a chord with Americans then and now. What did Joe Biden say today? Nothing. He did his checklist. Can't say he didn't give a speech now, but he did nothing. President of the United States attacks Make America Great Again Republicans with a vile, poisonous, cancerous language. He attacks Benjamin Netanyahu and many of his conservative cabinet members with a vile, putrid language and attacks on and off the record. He says nothing of George Soros, nothing of the foundations that are behind this. He says nothing of Qatar, where his brother Jim was in business. Nothing of the Communist Chinese and the Confucius Institutes. He treats Hamas as if they're the good guys. And Iran is celebrating all of it. Our enemies are celebrating this. The Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans. They're celebrating. The terrorists, Iran, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba, and all the rest, they're celebrating it. Biden unleashed the hell in the Middle East with his policies by funding our enemy. Biden paid for October 7th, and so did Blinken. Biden and Blinken have paid for the nuclear weapons that Iran will have after the election. Your tax dollars. I'm the only one behind a microphone who's written about this before it happened. You've read the books. Ameritopia. American Marxism. The Democrat Party hates America. They're the biggest of them all. Liberty and tyranny. You've read them. You've heard me talk about them. We knew this was here. We knew it would get worse, and it has. This fusion of Marxism and Islamism is here. Not just agitators. It's more than that. And as far as we know, the government's not doing anything about these funding sources from billionaire Democrats, from foreign governments, from terrorist regimes. Nothing. Nothing will be done with these colleges and universities to de-Stalinize them until Biden's gone and the Republicans control both houses of Congress. And even then, I wonder. Republican state legislatures with Republican governors, they're free to act. Why aren't they acting? When you go to the back of American Marxism, you will see I have a whole section on education. And within the section on education, I talk about higher education. And I explain there some of the proposals you're hearing today, that a BDS movement needs to be unleashed against these colleges and universities. They're the enemy. They're the breeding grounds of Soviet-style, Islamist-style propaganda. They're brainwashing future generations. People who are supposed to support this country. And I talk there about defunding universities and colleges. And I talk there about eliminating the tenure provisions in these schools. I talk about reviewing how they spend monies, which is rarely done. The tuition that they charge us. Taxing these endowments. It's all in the book. The devouring of higher education. Then the subsidizing of it. And now under Biden, where 2/3 of the American people never graduated from a four-year college institution, are now subsidizing the 1/3 who do. That has to end. Now. I hear all the talk. What are these Republican state legislatures in red states doing? Well, Mark, most of these schools are in blue states. I got it. But what are they doing in the red states? We have excellent proposals, I must say, coming out of the Republican leadership in the House. I hear nothing in the Senate. Nothing. Zero. Joe Biden's speech today was pathetic. There was no substance. He didn't take a moral position. Most people don't run for president saying, I support anti-Semitism. But here we have a president where it's swirling around our country. And I can tell you as a Jew, we've never seen anything like this before in our history, in this country. And this is the best he can do. He's a moral chameleon. When the politics told him to support segregation and racism and to oppose the integration of our public schools, that's what he did. When the politics told him in 1994 to sponsor a law that would target our inner cities and the black community, penalties for crack over cocaine, he did it. When the politics today are with him and Blinken, using horrendous propaganda against the only Jewish state. Horrendous propaganda against their prime minister. Blood libels about how the Jews in the Middle East are killing the innocent Palestinians. The Jewish military is bombing them, and it's over the top. And the opposite is true. When they use Hamas statistics on civilian deaths, Biden and Blinken have poured gas on the anti-Semitism that has been bubbling up in our colleges and universities and so much of our culture. He has blood on his hands. From October 7th on the border and throughout Afghanistan. This is the best he can do? This is what he says? The media celebrated, his party celebrated? Joe Biden is you fill in the blank, and he always has been. And if he's reelected, we are a very sick people. I mean sick in terms of suicide. Sick in terms of sabotaging ourselves, destroying our future. We're a nation that won't survive. More when I return.
Mark Levin.
Our once mighty dollars under siege from runaway inflation. For those still working, your paychecks buy less while costs for gas, food, cars, utilities skyrocket thanks to inflation. That's why I'm urging all my listeners to register for the upcoming Gold and Silver Summit hosted by our friends at Advantage Gold. It's a fantastic seminar. They'll teach you how to take steps to help guard your wealth from inflation using asset diversification into physical precious metals. Gold and silver hold intrinsic value that should remain untouched by government manipulation. Folks, don't wait for the Fed's reckless policies to completely devalue the dollar and steal your life savings. Call now while free registration is open. I'm telling you, this is a fantastic seminar. Call 800-900-8000 right now. The Gold and Silver Summit could provide the vital insights we need to protect our families. 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Always consult your financial and tax professionals. It's a short segment. When we come back, I want to remind you of something. First of all, I want to thank all our folks at Fox. Fox really is one of the few places, there are a couple, that takes the side of good against evil. And I am proud and honored to be part of Fox. Look, I have a little part, 2 programs, that's it. But I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be part of the Blaze, Levin TV, because we take the side of good against evil, and I am proud to be here, right where I am at Westwood 1. Don't always agree, but I agree on this, where, again, they let me speak my mind and what I have to say without interruption. More when I return. Attention, fellow Americans. Mark Levin here with a warning and a solution. I feel like our country's being destroyed by out-of-control spending and debt thanks to Biden and the American Marxists. And your hard-earned savings and retirement could be at risk from their socialist schemes. That's why you should consider Advantage Gold, the best of the best, a U.S.-based company that specializes in helping everyday Americans protect their wealth. They have a simple solution to help you even potentially grow your wealth despite the attacks from Washington. I urge you to register for their upcoming Gold and Silver Summit. It's fabulous. A free online event where you'll learn tips to help safeguard your finances by diversifying into physical precious metals. Call 800-900-8000. Call them right now to sign up securely for this pivotal summit. It is crucial. Tell them Mark Levin sent you for a special bonus. Call 800-900-8000 right now. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
When the going gets tough, a tough get. Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
You know, I have friends in this business, as well as others. Mark, why do you write these books? Why do you write these books? You don't need the money. They kill your weekends. They kill your vacation days. They kill you. You're writing all times, day and night. Because they don't understand me. I don't do it for any of those reasons. I do it because there's different ways to communicate with you, my fellow citizens. There's this, behind the microphone. There's people who like to read. Maybe some of you don't. Maybe some of you do. There's people who really don't care about radio or podcasting. They're more TV-oriented. Or they cut their cable and now they're on the internet, so we have the blaze. And I have one life to live. And I'm going to live it in a way in which I think I can contribute as much as possible to sustaining this magnificent country that God put here. And me and you, that we're blessed to be here. That's why I do it. And when I write a book, like when I give a opening statement on Fox or here or whatever, it causes me to really think deeply. I can't have ghostwriters. I can't have people do my research. Or the whole point is destroyed. If I just want to make money, that's exactly what I would do. But I don't. I have the smallest staff in nationally syndicated radio. I have Mr. Producer, Rich, who's also my engineer. We have Stephen, sometimes Christian, the call screener. That's it. That's it, right, Mr. Producer? We don't have anybody else. One full-time person and one part-time person. Write my book. I have no researchers. I have no ghostwriters. That's why when I come behind this microphone, you might say, hey, that's interesting. Hey, I didn't know that history. Hey, I didn't think about it. But I'm thinking about it. I have to confess, it's an obsession of mine all the time. I want to read something to you. In American Marxism, Chapter 1 is It's Here. Chapter 2 is Breeding Mobs. Chapter 3 is Hate America, Inc. So when I get questions by people, how did we get here? How did this happen? It's something that's relatively easy to answer, but it takes time to explain. That's why a book is important. I find that people who like to talk on TV and radio and so forth, they don't do a hell of a lot of book reading. Now, they'll read the internet, they'll read the articles, the news. Of course, we all have to be on that. We have to be up with that, top of it. But when it comes to history and philosophy, critical matters of humanity, not so much. The counterrevolution, as I explained in Chapter 1, it's here, to the American Revolution, is in full force. I wrote this 3.5 years ago. It can no longer be dismissed or ignored, for it's devouring our society and culture, swirling around our everyday lives, and ubiquitous in our politics, schools, media, and entertainment. Once a mostly unrelatable fringe and subterranean movement, it's here. It's everywhere. You, your children, and your grandchildren are now immersed in it. And it threatens to destroy the greatest nation ever established, along with your freedom, family, and security. Of course, the primary difference between this counter-revolution and the American Revolution is that the former seeks to destroy American society and impose autocratic rule. And the latter sought to protect American society and institute representative government. The counter-revolution of which I speak is American Marxism. The application and adaptation of core Marxist teachings to American society and culture, which I call American Marxism, must be addressed and confronted, lest we are smothered by its modern manifestations. And make no mistake, the situation today, and of course it goes on, in part, America, many Marxists cloak themselves in phrases like progressives, democratic socialists, or social activists, or community activists, and so forth. Most Americans remain openly hostile to the name Marxism, so they try and conceal it. They operate under myriad newly minted organizational or identifying nomenclatures, such as Black Lives Matter, BLM, Antifa, the Squad, whatever. They claim to promote economic justice, environmental justice, racial equity, gender equity. They've invented new theories, like critical race theory, phrases and terminologies linked to or fit into a Marxist construct. Moreover, they claim the dominant culture and capitalist system are unjust and inequitable, racist and sexist, colonialist and imperialist, materialistic and destructive of the environment. Of course, the purpose is to tear down and tear apart our nation for 1,000 reasons and in 1,000 ways, thereby dispiriting and demoralizing you and undermining your confidence in the nation's institutions, traditions, and customs, creating one calamity after another, weakening the nation from within, and ultimately destroying what we know as American republicanism and capitalism. There should be no mistake that various leaders of this counter-revolution are increasingly outspoken and brazen about who they are, including bands of openly Marxist professors and activists, and they're supported by a core group of zombie-like woke followers, fanatics. Whatever their labels and self-descriptions, the essential characteristics of their beliefs, statements, and policies exhibit core Marxist dogma. And they occupy our colleges and universities, newsrooms and social media, boardrooms and entertainment. And their ideas are prominent within the Democrat Party, the Oval Office, and the halls of Congress. Their influence is seen and felt among the mostly witting as well as the unsuspecting. And in news reporting, movies, television shows, and commercials, publishing and sports, as well as teacher training and classroom curriculum throughout America's public school system. During the violent riots of 2020, which involved looting, arson, even murder in multiple cities over the course of several months, where Antifa and BLM had prominent organizational roles, the Democrat Party's leadership mostly regurgitated the rhetoric and the claims of the anarchist Marxist groups and rioters, including the broad condemnation of law enforcement as systematically racist, and were not only loath to denounce the violence, but incredibly declared the rioters as mostly peaceful. Their demand to defund the police, later changed to slash their budgets, as legitimate. Marxism is especially alluring to and actively supported by individuals who find Marxism's oppressor-oppressed class warfare construct appealing for several reasons. Now you hear other hosts in TV and radio using that formulation, which you first read in this book. First, the fact is people want to belong to groups, including ethnic, racial, religious, and economic groups. People find identity, commonality, purpose, and even self-worth with such attachments. I believe this to be the most potent of Marxists' paradigms because he exploits this instinctively human and psychologically emotional appeal to create passionate and even fanatical adherents and revolutionaries. This is another characteristic of American Marxism and the Democratic Party, and it goes on. And it goes on. Almost 1.5 million of you have this book. I suggest you might consider dusting it off. It'll answer that question, how did we get here? What's going on? And then volume 2, which is The Democrat Party Hates America. Far few of you purchased that book. Almost 500,000 of you, but I recommend you dust that off too. Then you'll understand Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress and in the media. Then there's another book. You don't have to buy any of them. I'm not telling you to. Then there's another book, Plunder and Deceit. There's an entire chapter on education, higher education, which delve deeply into the issue of these institutions, their funding, and the ideology that has been enshrined, particularly in our Ivy League schools. And I explain in detail how college professors are hired by other college professors, how there are ideological tests. It's incestuous how Ivy League schools hire from their own schools to ensure that the ideological tests and standards are met. The administrators come out of the faculty for the most part, with few exceptions. So it's an entire circle of Marxist and Islamist ideology that runs these institutions. And then layered on top of them, we now have DEI. Diversity, equity, and all the rest of it. Which formally institutionalizes racism and bigotry from a Marxist perspective. The colleges and the universities. The Soviet Union was destroyed, but it lives on in our colleges and universities. Islam, that is Islamists, I should say. They have home in our colleges and universities. We pay for it all. Parents pay for it all. Parents need to be much more discerning about what colleges they allow their kids to attend. Because this is what's being created, the brainwashing, the breeding. And unless we Americans, 2/3 of whom never graduated from a 4-year college, unless we get a hold of this and wrestle it to the ground, unless we begin to defund these institutions of hate and racism and anti-Semitism and Marxism and Islamism, unless we destroy the incestuous tenure system, unless we start taxing these endowments, which even some Republicans and conservatives have been funding for decades, unless we begin serious oversight and investigations about what's happening on our college campuses, unless we prevent colleges and universities from taking billions of dollars from our enemies. Mark, how can you stop that? Simple. You take $1 from Qatar, you lose all your dollars from the United States government. You take $1 from communist China, you lose all your dollars from the United States government and the states. We will have one major obstacle in this country. You know what it is, Mr. Producer? The Democrat Party. And their media sycophants. Please listen to me carefully. The Democrat Party supports what's taking place. the media support what's taking place. How do I know? They created it. They celebrate it. They give it voice. The Democrat Party and their media support anti-Semitism. Yes, with some exceptions, but not enough. That's where they are. The media outlets that use Hamas numbers, media outlets that use blood libels against the Jewish state of Israel, the media outlets that attack the elected prime minister of Israel, the media outlets that give a Stalinist like Bernie Sanders a platform, they give an anti-Semite like Tlaib, Omar, AOC platforms. They obviously support it because they book these people and they promote them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
My fellow Americans, we're living in very perilous economic times. Washington seems determined to bankrupt our nation with endless stimulus spending. As they devalue our dollar, hard-working Americans like you could lose everything. That's why I urge you strongly, register for the upcoming Gold and Silver Summit hosted by our friends at Advantage Gold. They'll teach you how to help guard your wealth using asset diversification into physical precious metals. Gold and silver can offer a defense against the dollar's devaluation, and the experts at Advantage Gold will explain how you can convert some of your savings into precious metals that can protect and potentially grow your wealth. With currency debasement from Washington and global uncertainty on the rise, gold and silver diversification can offer you some stability. Call 800-900-8000 right now to sign up. 800-900-8000 now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. I want to ask you a question that I will answer after the top of the hour. You ever hear the Emancipation Proclamation? At the time, it was a supposedly controversial declaration that was signed by Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War that emancipated the slaves in the South. It was a declaration. Was that constitutional? The 1964 Civil Rights Act, in many ways for the first time, empowered the federal government, federal authorities, to step in where states were violating the due process and equal protection rights of other individuals, especially blacks. Was that constitutional? Let's go back. How about the Louisiana Purchase? Thomas Jefferson executed that without funding from Congress per se. Was that constitutional? Why is Mark asking this? I'll tell you when we come back. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Abraham Lincoln was urged to sign the Emancipation Proclamation during the Civil War, freeing the black slaves in the South. It's considered one of the greatest presidential acts in American history. Was it constitutional? I doubt it. I doubt it was constitutional. Lincoln doubted it was constitutional. But we were in the middle of a civil war. The battle for the country. If you lose the country, you lose everything, including the Constitution. And he signed it. Couldn't enforce it. Unless they won the war, of course. But it sent a signal. It sent a signal to the slaves and other blacks in the South, as well as the North, that the government of the United States, the Union, wouldn't tolerate it. What about the 1964 Civil Rights Act? People don't know that one of the great civil rights activists of his time was not Joe Biden, was actually Barry Goldwater, back in Arizona. He was a member of the NAACP. He helped start the Urban League chapter. And as they were losing money, about to go under, he gave them money. His family owned the Goldwater department stores. When he became the chairman of the board of the Goldwater department stores at a very young age, he immediately eliminated segregation in his business. He was a leading figure for integration in back then the territory of Arizona. He founded the Arizona National Guard and integrated it, if you will. But he voted against the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And he consulted another great man by the name of Professor Robert Bork. He said the law is unconstitutional. The federal government does not have this kind of power over the states. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, nonetheless, was passed by an overwhelming majority of Republicans in the House and the Senate. Not so many when it comes to the Democrats in the House and the Senate. Then we go back to the Louisiana Purchase. Thomas Jefferson had no authority to spend the funds out of the Treasury Department to do what he did. But look at all the land that was acquired. He said it's now or never. If I don't do this now, it won't happen. It's the future of the country. Was it unconstitutional? I think it was. Jefferson, Lincoln. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which has had a hugely important impact on this nation. I don't recommend violating the Constitution on a whim. Our Marxist friends, so-called the Democrats, they seek to destroy it in every aspect of it. So this is not a defense. I'm not a special pleader for violating the Constitution. But there are issues that are more complicated than others. And often they tend to come down to race. That's why I added the Louisiana Purchase at the end. Two of the greatest pieces of federal action in American history, the Emancipation Proclamation and the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Both of which have questionable constitutional bases. I mention this because there are a lot of people in this business who fancy themselves constitutionalists, historians, and of course they're nothing of the sort. The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, some have argued, is unconstitutional because it violates the First Amendment. And then they read from the statute, or the would-be statute that's going to go to the House, the Senate. And in this, they are supported by the likes of Bernie Sanders, and the House supported by the likes of Tlaib and Omar, of course. They're not voting over the First Amendment. They're voting because they hate Jews. So why was this act proposed at all? First of all, it codifies, if it's passed, what Donald Trump did with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Title VI has been disputed by many, but it is very, very difficult to write a statute that pleases everybody or in every respect can withstand a legal challenge. It's very difficult when it comes to free speech, the press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and so forth. So what these Republicans, with some Democrats, were trying to do in the House and in the Senate was to take what Donald Trump started, and he signed an executive order, and give it the power of Congress, of a congressional act. The core of this would-be statute is perfectly constitutional. There will be debates around the fringes, certain language in the statute. There'll be a debate around the fringes. The core of it will withstand judicial challenge. But this is one of those times when an act like this is necessary. And the rest of it will have to be sorted out. It's not a flagrantly unconstitutional law. I can make a very strong case for the core of this act. The core of it. Where again, there may be some language in it that will be challenged successfully. That's the nature of how things work. But do these people think that it was a mistake for Lincoln to sign the Emancipation Proclamation? What would they have said back then? How would they have voted with the 1964 Civil Rights Act? I'm just curious. And let me remind some of these hosts, radio and TV, of something our friend Tom Rose, a friend of mine, Rose, on October 31, 2023, that he wrote for JNS. This is several months ago. The United States is experiencing the most explosive and dangerous eruption of anti-Semitism in its 250-year history. Indeed, it is absolutely unprecedented in American life. Never before have thousands of people gathered to support the mass murder of Jews with open calls for the annihilation of the Jewish state. Again, this is October 31st. Now they're talking about the extermination of the Jews, period. Worst of all, he says, perhaps this is the first and only form of any organized hatred in the United States that has been extreme nationalist in intent. Exterminationalist, I should say. Not even the most abhorrent Confederate supporters of slavery assembled to call for the extermination of all black people. Certainly there have been elements of anti-Jewish bigotry in America since colonial times, but they would barely register compared to today. A cursory look at history reveals as much. Until the middle of the 19th century, mainstream Protestants were more anti-Catholic than anti-Jewish. Since there were so few Jews in America back then, it's not surprising that this was the case. The most infamous official act of American anti-Semitism in the 19th century was General Ulysses S. Grant, Order Number 11, issued during the Civil War to expel Jews from the border states. President Abraham Lincoln immediately revoked it and chastised Grant. The order never went into effect. No Jew was ever expelled. Grant later called it the most regrettable act of his life. He went on to become one of the most pro-Jewish presidents in American history. In 1881, Russia's Tsar issued the May Decrees, which were designed to expel Russia's Jews by making life there impossible for them. Triggered a wave of emigration that saw 2.5 million mostly penniless Jews arrive in America by 1914. The still small and well-established native-born American Jews feared such huge numbers would spark a dangerous anti-Semitic backlash. But for the most part, it did not. The worst recorded act of violent anti-Semitism was the widely publicized 1919 Georgia lynching of Leo Frank, a Jew falsely accused of murder. But there were no acts of mass violence against Jews. Henry Ford is well known to this day as one of the most powerful anti-Semites in American history. What is less known is that Henry Ford ultimately repudiated his loathsome views and closed down the Dearborn Independent newspaper, which he used to espouse them. Well, it's back. Ford denounced Hitler early on for his persecution of Jews and was later a leading donor to Jewish organizations. Not even Father Charles Coughlin, whose popular radio broadcast blamed the Jews for every ill under the sun, came close to being the exterminationalist anti-Semite against the extermination of the Jews. When the Catholic Church finally censured him for his bigotry, he quickly fell into oblivion. The most frequent expressions of what we insulated Americans used to consider anti-Semitism were the fancy hotels that banned Jews, the numerous clauses that limited the number of Jews at top universities, and the country clubs that denied membership to Jews. But today, this seems quaint compared to the outpouring of support for Hamas's October 7 rampage and anti-Semitic mass murder and crimes against humanity. What makes this celebration of the slaughter of Jews still more terrifying is that it's led by some of the best credentialed elites in our society, and it's attracted so many young people. Those so-called sophisticated supporters of genocide cloud their exterminationalist intentions with euphemisms like decolonize Palestine, which means get rid of the Jews. Free Palestine surely can't mean free Gaza, since it's been entirely free since 2005. Never before in history has America elected anyone to Congress who dared support groups seeking the extermination of the Jews. Today, some half a dozen members of Congress either openly support Hamas or refuse to condemn it. Just as Israel can no longer tolerate Hamas, neither can we tolerate its supporters. Whoever defends or justifies Hamas must not be condemned. They must be shamed, shunned, and expelled from civil society. The longer such diabolical voices are amplified by collaborationist media and go uncondemned by leaders of their own political party, the louder their voices and the larger their numbers will become. This would constitute not just an existential threat to America's Jews, but to America itself. And you see it with the pulling down of the American flag and the raising of the Palestinian flag in the United States of America. So those so-called constitutional experts and First Amendment purists, all of a sudden, this is why the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act was presented by the Speaker and the Republican leadership in the House, supported by all but 21 Republicans in the House, and some of whom were absent, and now hopefully will be passed in the Senate and signed by the biggest anti-Semite to serve in the White House in American history. The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act is akin to the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the Emancipation Proclamation. It's intended to protect this republic from the cancerous evil and the poisonous forces within it that use our nation's liberty to destroy it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Nowadays, $20 barely gets you a burger and fries, or maybe a quarter tank of gasoline. You know what it will get you, though? For just $20 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data from my cell phone company, Pure Talk. You'll get the same quality of service as AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can trade your phone or get great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Make the switch today and save an additional 50% off your first month. Choose a wireless company that shares our values, that supports our military and veterans, that creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on fake news networks. Instead, they're right here with us. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and make the switch right now so you can actually afford that burger and fries. That's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin. By the way, in a half hour, the America's governor will be on the program. Governor DeSantis of Florida, of course. Be right back. Nowadays, $20 barely gets you a burger and fries and maybe a quarter tank of gasoline. You know what it will get you, though? For just $20 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data from my cell phone company, Pure Talk. You'll get the same quality of service as AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can trade your phone or get great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Make the switch today and save an additional 50% off your first month. Choose a wireless company that shares our values, that supports our military and veterans, that creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on fake news networks. Instead, they're right here with us. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and make the switch right now so you can actually afford that burger and fries. That's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin.
Mark Levin, the Great One.
The Great One, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
President Trump outside the courtroom this morning. Cut 4, go.
I will comment just quickly on the colleges and universities. It's a shame. I'm so proud of the New York's finest. They're great people, too. I know so many of them. They're incredible. They did a job at Columbia. And likewise in Los Angeles, they did a really good job at UCLA. It was very much embedded. And just so you understand, this is the radical left. This is a movement from the left, not from the right. The right is not your problem. Despite what law enforcement likes to say, the FBI director said that he worries about the right. No, don't worry about the right. The right's fine. Worry about the left, because this is a movement from the left. These are radical left lunatics. And they got to be stopped now, because it's going to go on, and it's going to get worse and worse. And, you know, they take over countries, okay? And we're not letting them take over the USA. We're not letting the radical left morons take over this country. You can't let that happen. And the law enforcement and people at DOJ, instead of going after Donald Trump, they ought to look at what's happening in their own offices, because you're loaded up with radical left people that want this country to fail. And we're not going to let this country fail.
He's so damn good. He's so damn good. And they're going to try and cheat and lie and spend their way to victory. That's what they're going to do. But only we can stop them at the ballot box. And we must vote early. We've got to get used to it. I used to tell you that when the president used to say, don't. No, do. Vote early. Rack up the numbers early. Why, Mark? Because on election day, then you can work at the polls. On election day, you can work from your home on your cell phone or your hardline phone, calling people to get out, driving people to the polls. Just vote early. Speaker Mike Johnson on News Nation yesterday. This man has moral clarity. Even though he's under attack, and every speaker in the future will be under attack, given the numbers of the Republicans, they're all under attack. Kevin McCarthy had moral clarity. And I supported him as speaker, and I opposed the efforts to take him out. He's a good man. Mike Johnson has moral clarity, and I oppose the efforts to take him out. Who do they think they're going to replace these guys with? Honest to God. What was it that the Green said? She just assumed have Hakeem Jeffries? Is that what she said, Mr. Producer? It was Lauren Boebert? What are they, nuts? Okay, that's their agenda. It's not my agenda. We're up against the Marxists and the Islamists. We don't want them to have the speakership. By the way, what the hell has this guy Hakeem Jeffries said about anything? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Now, I want you to hear the difference between Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson. Cut 5, go.
There's a lot of federal funding that makes its way into these institutions, and if they cannot respect the most basic constitutional rights, the civil rights of their students, and protect them, their safety, then they don't deserve to be funded by the taxpayer.
What about the endowments?
Now stop. Isn't that a big difference between Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson? I mean, come on. Do we have to go down the path of stupidity? I'm not going. Go ahead.
Tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about whether they should be taxed. They also get very generous tax benefits as they're operated as nonprofits. All that is on the table. There'll be a lot of discussion, investigation. We have to do what we must to stamp this out. This anti-Semitism movement is dangerous. This is not constitutionally protected free speech. I was a constitutional law attorney. I ironically used to litigate campus free speech cases. Okay, this is far over the line. This is inciting violence. They are physically threatening fellow students, closing campuses down, occupying buildings, destroying property. These are common criminals, and they need to be treated as such.
This man must be removed, Mr. Producer, don't you think? He's just terrible. He's awful. He's no different than Hakeem Jeffries. I got a little information. I'm more in touch with the American people than any single politician. Why? Because of you. You, the American people. Every week, 14.5 million of you. Conservatives and Republicans do not want this man removed any more than they wanted Kevin McCarthy removed. They do not. We know who the enemy is, or should I say the enemies are. They're on the other side of the aisle. They hate our country. We know who they are. The Democrat Party hates America. And if people can't figure that out, they ought to be defeated, quite frankly. Let me give you an example of somebody who wants Hakeem Jeffries as the Speaker of the House. Somebody who will vote against next week. That is in favor, probably, of removing Mike Johnson. She's called Rashida Tlaib. She represents, among other places, Dearbornistan. Her parents came to the United States from Palestinian territories. She hates America. She hates Israel. She hates Jews. And yet her speaker candidate is Hakeem Jeffries. Isn't that amazing? Here she is on the floor of the House yesterday. Cut 6, go.
Sending in militarized police forces and even snipers to stop these students for exercising their First Amendment right is truly disgusting. My colleagues are so outraged by students opposing genocide.
Shut up, you clown. You jerk. Since when do we elect Marxist, Islamist, America-hating, Jew-hating pieces of S like this to the United States House of Representatives? Well, since we've had open borders, for sure. She's the enemy. She is the enemy. She doesn't denounce Hamas. She doesn't denounce October 7th. She's a Hitlerian. She's a Nazi. Sue me, baby. Go ahead. I'm telling you right now. I'll own you and everything connected to you. That's right, I said you're a Nazi. A modern-day Nazi. And she's not the only one. Of course, she probably thinks that's a compliment. Free speech to take over our colleges and universities. Free speech to attack Jewish students. Free speech to prevent Jewish students from going to the classroom. Free speech to take down the American flag and replace it with the Palestinian flag. That's not their property. They want to do that. They can do it on their own property. They don't have a right to do these things on government property or college property. No, they don't. And yet there are fools who believe they do. She talks about militarized police forces and even snipers. I wanted to say something to the police officers in this country. Thank you. From the bottom of the hearts of tens of millions of us. To be honest with you, very few people want your jobs anymore. The pay sucks. You're treated horrifically, even when you arrest these bastards. You have these prosecutors who won't prosecute or let them go. You put your lives on the line every damn day. I am so proud of the police officers in the United States of America. Maybe Tlaib ought to take a closer look at the militarized police forces used by Abbas, her terrorist hero. Or the militarized police forces used by Hamas. Or the militarized police forces used by Iran. And the women who are raped and tortured and brutalized. And the people who are killed. Maybe Rashida Tlaib ought to look at that with her buddy Blinken and her buddy Biden and their buddy Bernie Sanders, the Stalinist. Boy, I hope that son of a bastard. I wish he would sue me. That's right, Bernie. That's right. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, I would never settle. I would maximize my discovery abilities to gain access to all kinds of information. Same with this group, CARA, Hamas Front Group. They used to go around, terrorize program directors and radio stations to get hosts fired. So I was the first one on WMAL. I said, come for me. What are you going to do about it? I'll own you bastards and everything you have. I'll get your texts and your emails. I'll get your phone logs. I'll get your documents. I'll get your funding sources. I'll get it all. Be the biggest lawsuit in American history. Yours. I don't fear any of these people. Ever. Never. As long as I have a voice on radio or TV, online, I will use it. And when my day comes, there'll be another person behind me. And when their day comes, there'll be another person behind them. We're not going anywhere. Red-blooded Americans. Many of you listening to this program are not Jewish. Most of you listening to this program are not Jewish. But you listen to the program because you know and I know. This is a war against America. That's what it is. You look at these college campuses and you're horrified. You listen to Biden, to the extent he says anything, and you're disgusted. You watch him give away your hard-earned tax dollars to elitists who hate our country, who are far wealthier than you. I think about people who go to work every day with a construction belt. Roofers, bricklayers, people who lay asphalt. I think about people, the electricians, the plumbers, the HVAC folks, the truck drivers, the waiters and waitresses, the mechanics, people who work at gas stations, little shop owners, the people who fill our shelves at the grocery stores, the cashiers, the people you come in contact every day of your life, infinite number of contacts over the course of your life, the people who make this country work. They're attacking us. They're attacking you. You're not an imperialist. You're not a colonialist. You're not a white supremacist. You're not a black Marxist. You're not any of these damn things. And yet these people are privileged. Privilege. And these people who come into our country, they hate us. But they're not going to defeat us. Rashida Tlaib is a cancer in the body politic. She's a hemorrhotic. Those of you who listen to the program know I coined that word, hemorrhotic. Right, Mr. Producer? In other words, she's a hemorrhoid. I call her a hemorrhotic. She's a hemorrhotic on the body politic. In fact, she's a bleeding hemorrhotic. Rashida Tlaib. Omar said she's in Congress to represent basically her home country of Somalia and her Muslim faith. Now, you're in Congress to represent America. You take an oath to America. But they hate America. These are Marxist Islamists. They hate you. You know who they hate the most? Muslims who don't throw in with them. It's true. Like Marx. Marx hated socialists. Why? He said they're halfway Marxists. They're no good. That's why you always have these battles among Muslims, battles among Marxists. There are quote-unquote good Muslims. Zuhdi Jasser is a perfect example. His family fled from Syria. He served in the United States Navy. I've endorsed him. And there are many. How do I know? Because I deal with them in my everyday life. The assistant manager of the bank I use, he's a Muslim from Pakistan. He shakes his head about what's going on these college campuses. It disgusts him. I'm talking about the Islamists. The people that Biden and Blinken cater to and embrace. The terrorists. Biden and Blinken are not providing any kind of support or compassion to Muslims who support America. They're funding the enemy. They're funding the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran that is killing Muslims, their own people. Same with Hamas and the rest. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Nowadays, $20 barely gets you a burger and fries and maybe a quarter tank of gasoline. You know what it will get you, though? For just $20 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data from my cell phone company, Pure Talk. You'll get the same quality of service as AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can trade your phone or get great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Make the switch today and save an additional 50% off your first month. Choose a wireless company that shares our values, that supports our military and veterans, that creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on fake news networks. Instead, they're right here with us. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and make the switch right now so you can actually afford that burger and fries. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Levin. Governor Ron DeSantis will be with us at the beginning of the next hour. Good man. Good man. We'll be right back with Governor DeSantis.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. Our number is 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Governor DeSantis, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's the family? How's your wife?
We're doing good. So, she's doing great. You know, we're getting ready to end of the school year coming up here in a few weeks. So we've got first grader, kindergartner, and preschooler be ready for summer break. And, a couple months ago, they had always talked about getting a dog, but we were very busy. And I'm like, all right, if you guys are going to help out and we're going to be here and have it, so we adopted a dog from the pet shelter a couple months ago. And so they're loving that. And we fostered a few more in the meantime and gotten them adopted out. So
wow.
we're enjoying that. Yeah, we, because it's Tallahassee, they don't have a lot of space in their shelter, so we bring them and do it. And we put one on the internet the other night, and within like an hour, it got adopted. Actually, a dog that was rescued from the southern border because we have a group, Big Dog Rescue, actually down by where you are in Palm Beach County, and they rescue dogs from all over, but they're getting all these dogs from the border. I mean, we obviously see the human carnage with the open border, but our canine friends have been treated very poorly as a result of it as well.
So you're a big dog lover.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We love it.
Yeah, me too. We are as well. I want to ask you some questions, Governor, especially now that I'm a resident of your state here. I'm looking at this report from the House committee. They finally got information out of Mayorkas. You've got, during an 8-month period, Biden has been flying aliens into our country. It was a secret program. Nobody heard of it before. Now we know about it. As if the southern border isn't porous enough, we're actually flying people into the country by the hundreds of thousands. And it turns out that 80% of the arrivals are winding up in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Tampa, Florida, because, they have to have some family member, some association. So that means they're dropping a ton of these people into your state. Were you ever contacted about any of this?
No, of course not. And what he's doing is he's abusing his authority by paroling. This is not how you use parole. He's going into foreign countries, unconstitutionally paroling people, then flying them in with effectively what purports to be legal documents at that point. So it's not that they're chartering flights. They're just putting these people on commercial flights. So you may have a flight land in Miami, and there may be 250 people on the flight, and you may have 5 or 6 of them that are these, illegal parolees that he's doing, but they'll have documentation. They'll go through, and even DHS doesn't know what happens to them at that point. Now, we have not, and this is also dated. This is from 2023 where those numbers are from. We did not see an uptick in anything inside our state in terms of illegal aliens. In fact, a lot of what we've done has been effective in deterring because we've done things like impose penalties on human smuggling, E-Verify. We have a flotilla of vessels helping the Coast Guard protect against vessels coming in from places like Haiti. And people said a couple months ago there was going to be this massive invasion from Haiti on these boats because of the instability. Now they're saying, gee, we haven't seen it. I wonder why. Well, the reason why is because we put people out there. But we are suing Biden over his illegal parole program. I think that we would win on the merits, but Mark, and you know the law. We have these conservative judges, will bring cases and they'll find lack of standing to hold Biden accountable. And the liberal judges never find lack of standing. When they used to sue the Trump administration, the judges would indulge it. So we're right on the law. If we win on the standing, we'll win the case and shut the program down. But here's the thing. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to fight it. Texas, some other states are fighting it too. But Mark, this would not be happening if the House of Representatives simply refused to fund it. They are funding Biden's border policies with this most recent spending bill and the previous spending bills, even though we have a Republican House. And so he's able to get away with it. You know better than anyone, I know, the Founding Fathers said if the executive is abusing his power, doing something affirmative like this, the remedy is for the House of Representatives to cut off funding for it. That's really what we needed, and they totally dropped the ball on that.
Well, you know what, Governor? Interesting you should say that, though. I get your point on funding, but I don't think Biden cares either way. Look at the student loan thing. He doesn't have funding to do what he's doing. The Supreme Court told him he can't do it, and he's doing it anyway. He's forgiving loans to these students, some of whom I guess are part of this Marxist Islamist coalition on these college campuses and so forth. So we have a huge problem here, which is this. You have a Democrat Party that hates the Constitution, so they're never going to support impeaching this guy. You have Republicans who are weak on this subject, impeaching this guy, and yet at the drop of the hat, they were impeaching Trump. How do you hold a guy like this accountable when the constitutional system is not able to kick in, if you know what I mean?
Well, look, I mean, I do think that having a funding fight would be beneficial. I think it would have been meaningful. It would have highlighted the issue of the border. You know, there is at some point where an executive does need to access different pots of money, like on the student loan stuff. You know, they're abusing an existing statute, which there is some loan forgiveness in limited circumstances, but not in these circumstances. So the Supreme Court slapped him down what he first tried to do. Now they found another statute where they're trying to do it. He'll eventually lose in court on that as well. But I think that someone like Biden, who has the administrative state on his side, basically, he's made the judgment, and it's probably an accurate judgment that, hey, Congress isn't going to do. What are they going to do? They're not going to do anything. So he continues to persist in it. But this is the end result of decades of fecklessness by the legislative branch. The fact of the matter is we would not have the bureaucracy and the administrative state we have right now if Congresses of the past had been concerned about exercising the appropriate constitutional oversight functions.
I don't have any problem with them shutting down the government. They can't seem to get the votes to do that.
Well, here's the thing. You know, what they would be doing in the House is they would be voting to fund the government, just not the stuff that's unconstitutional or that's harming the country. So what it would be is that it would be the U.S. Senate, controlled by Chuck Schumer, who would be making the decision not to fund any of the government, or Biden vetoing a bill that would get to his desk. So I think they end up accepting kind of the way the media constructs this. But in reality, if you vote to fund the government in the constitutional way and simply withhold funding from Biden's reckless and unconstitutional policies, you're voting to keep the core functions of government going. That they've never been willing to do that or to make it. But here's the thing. They're worried about political blowback if there's somehow a partial lapse in appropriations from some government agencies. You know, I think they should worry about the blowback from the voters who sent them there to do something about this and then didn't do anything about it. So I think it's been frustrating to watch. We haven't seen really any actions. I think Biden has gotten almost everything that he's wanted throughout these last almost year and a half, and it's frustrating to see.
And Reagan shut down the government 6 times. I can tell you, I worked in that administration, and it didn't seem to hurt him electorally, did it?
No, and that's because people knew that he was doing what he told them he would do. He said the government was too big. He said government was the problem, and that he would do something about it. And I think our Republicans, I think one of the problems is that they run with the strong rhetoric about how Washington's the problem and how they need to shrink the budget and all this stuff, but yet never follow through with it. And what I found in this business, Mark, is if you tell people what you're going to do and you follow through with it, even if some people don't necessarily agree with you, they appreciate the fact that you said what you were going to do and you followed through on it. And I think our guys right now are just not doing that.
Now, what is this? It's funny, Nikki Haley brought up, maybe we should bring Palestinians into this country from Gaza. By the way, have you heard anything from her lately? Is she in the witness protection program? What's going on with her? Do you know?
I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. Well, and she brought up this idea, and then you hammered her, and she backed off, said she never said it, which, of course, she did. Turns out Biden and Blinken have been plotting, if not for weeks, maybe months, to bring in Palestinians from Gaza. 87% of the Palestinian population in Gaza supports Hamas. Why do they keep pretending that they don't? They keep pretending that they don't. The media keep pretending that they don't. Hell, we got Americans that support Hamas, like many of our faculty on our college campuses. What are we going to do to stop this, I wonder?
Well, that was the point I made last fall, is that this notion that somehow you can separate terrorists from like freedom lovers in a place like the Gaza Strip. You don't have to be a member of Hamas. The fact is they've got a very rotten culture, and people that are not members of Hamas do not believe Israel should exist, support what Hamas did on October 7th. That's just the reality that we're dealing with. So it's not in America's interest to be importing those types of pathologies from the Middle East into our country domestically. So the number of Palestinian Arabs we should be importing from Gaza is zero. I said that then, I say that now, and these congressmen should absolutely raise holy hell if he tries to do that. And this just goes to the larger issue about immigration. Immigration should be done to benefit the American people.
Right.
If less immigration benefits, then that's what you should do. Shutting the border, which I believe benefits the country, we should shut the border down. It should all be based on what's in the best interest of the American citizen. Can you plausibly give me a rationale for how it benefits the average American to be importing 100,000 people to America from the Gaza Strip?
God,
you
no.
Cannot, because it's not in our best interest. It is ideology run amok, and Biden, I think he looks at how this whole issue has fractured the left wing base, and he's trying to kowtow to these people just to save his political hide in the upcoming election.
I know we don't have a lot of time, Governor, but let me ask you this: you were the leader. I think this is how we first personally met in this effort to move the embassy, the American embassy, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I remember endorsing you when you decided to run for the House. I got a call from Adam Laxalt, who's a buddy of mine. I said, well, I don't know who this guy is. He says, endorse him. He's a good guy. And I spoke to Ed Meese. We both endorse you. You're a great guy. And so my question is this, though. Have you ever seen an administration that actually funds the enemy? Iran funds UNRWA through other countries now that pretends it's not. That is Hamas. Literally, I mean, this is worse than Neville Chamberlain. Chamberlain never funded the Germans, the Third Reich. We have a president that's funding Iran, that's selling oil to China, that's sending drones to Russia. Can you make any sense of this?
Mark, and a Congress that's doing it. I mean, that most recent bill that had no border, that had money for effectively Hamas, because it's going to be, quote, humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. But you and I both know when that money gets down there, Hamas is going to commandeer a good chunk, if not all of that money. One of the first bills this is back a decade ago in Congress, one of the first bills I did was something called the Palestinian Accountability Act, which sought, among other things, to defund UNRWA and defund these things that are just delusional that we would be doing it. But yes, he is funding both sides of the conflict. He is funding Hamas. He's funding Iran, and it's just a total disaster. Now, Obama, in Biden's defense, did do that too. I mean, you and I remember him flying the the plane load of cash in there, and all the hundreds of billions of sanctions relief Obama gave too. But they have done more to empower Iran than any two presidents in the history of the country since 1979, even more than Carter did. So it really is a disaster. And I think when people here in America, when they come up to me, what they say is like, okay, we have all these problems at home. We're sending all this money overseas, but a lot of the money we're sending are to people that hate this country.
Well,
why in the hell are we doing this?
I mean, Iran, for God's sakes. I mean, they're going to have a nuclear weapon paid for by the USA. It's crazy. Well, Governor DeSantis, it's always a pleasure. Just want people to know out there that you're still really a remarkable governor. And by the way, I don't see a lot going on the college campuses in Florida here, and I think there's a reason for that, no? You put your foot down.
There may have been some police escorting some of these people out. Some people may have gotten expelled. Some people, there have been consequences, let's just put it that way. So when there's consequences, you tend to not see the same type of behavior. But the bottom line, Florida is not New York. You're not going to be able to commandeer the lawn of a college campus in Florida and get away with it.
Amen. Governor, thank you very much. God bless you, sir.
All right. God bless you, buddy. Take care.
You too, Florida Governor, America's Governor, Ron DeSantis. He's really quite fantastic. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Mark Pomerantz is a notorious SOB with a law degree. Wrote a book on how he set up Donald Trump for this trial in Manhattan with his buddy. And so, a subcommittee of Congress on the weaponization of the federal government in May 2023 held a hearing and was questioning him. And Matt Gaetz questioned Pomerantz. This was just put out a year ago. Take a listen. Cut 12, go.
Under the advice of counsel, I'm not going to answer that question, sir. Privilege against self-incrimination.
And did you knowingly break any laws when investigating President Trump?
Objection. Same response.
Did you break any laws when you worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection. Same response.
Ms. Pomerantz, did you violate any person's constitutional rights when you worked on the Trump investigation?
Objection. I have the same response to your question.
Mr. Pomerantz, did you violate any person's constitutional rights while you worked at the Manhattan DA's office?
Objection. Same answer.
Did you misuse any federal funds while investigating President Trump?
Same response.
Did you misuse any federal funds while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Same response.
And did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were investigating President Trump?
Objection. Same response.
Did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection. Same response.
And did you violate any canons of legal ethics when you were investigating President Trump?
Objection. Same response.
Did you ever violate any canons of legal ethics while you worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection. The same response.
You believe this, Mr. Producer? Basically, did you break the law? I can't answer that on advice of counsel. Did you violate your ethics rules? Can't answer that. Did you abuse or misuse any funds, state or federal? Can't answer that. Why not? Why couldn't he answer any of those questions? This is what Donald Trump is facing, America. This is what he's up against. And even though they're trying to put a scarlet letter on his forehead, even though they're going to try and make this a major issue during the campaign, I'm thinking there's enough of us that know that that scarlet letter really belongs on the forehead of the prosecutor, on the forehead of the judge, and on the forehead of all these miscreants, reprobates, and malcontents who've been operating in the shadows, scheming against our president, undermining our electoral process, trying to clear the field for Mr. Dummy. I'll be right back.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
Ladies and gentlemen, Saturday on Life, Liberty, and Levin. I want to encourage you folks to set your DVRs for 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, and all the other times. Just do it tonight. Do it now. That way, maybe you're going to be watching a basketball playoff game or a hockey playoff game, and you can get both. I'm not a fool. I know what's going on out there, but these, I think, are very, very important shows. We all need a break from this stuff over time, but that's another reason. If you're not going to watch it live or you're not sure if you can, just set your DVR and it'll automatically record the program, because this Saturday we have Leo Terrell and Victor Davis Hanson. Fantastic. An opening statement. Fantastic. I want you to know something. When you listen to my opening statements, people follow. I have spent now a month, maybe more, providing to you on this radio show, on Levin TV, and on my Fox shows, the funding sources for what's taking place here. Now, we don't get any credit for this. I don't even seek credit for this. I don't expect credit for this. But you might recall behind this microphone, and even on Fox, I said, enough already with we don't know who's funding them or who's funding them, because I laid it out. I've laid it out in 2 opening statements on Fox. I've laid it out 3 times on this program. I've laid it out on Levin TV. We've posted it. We've posted the information, the sources. We've posted my broadcast right there for the whole world to see. And Mr. Producer, it's like, who's funding them? The issue now isn't who's funding them, but what we're going to do about it. What are we going to do about this? The governor talks about funding and money, that it's important. Well, Mike Johnson says he wants to start dealing with the funding on this. I hope he has support. Or what are we going to hear next? Academic freedom? This is about academic freedom. You can have academic freedom without our tax dollars. Talk all you want. Who cares? Have all the encampments you want, just not with our money, not with the facilities that you and I paid for. That's all. It's that simple. I have been little disagreements here and there with folks, including the governor, but I didn't think that was the time to really jump in. I thought it was very, very important that we funded Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. Or they're going to lose. It's that simple. I understand all the Washington speak. I understand all the issues. Or we're going to lose. This isn't a situation that you and I created. This is a situation that Joe Biden created. But that doesn't mean that our allies should fall and then we have fewer allies and our front lines become not Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan, but the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States of America. I don't know how many wars we have to fight and how many times we have to be reminded of this. But it's true. Advantage gold. Now, you know what's going on in this country. Anarchy. Strangely, I know this is sort of contradictory, but organized anarchy. That is, anarchy that comes out in spurts before elections when the Democrat Party organizes it and funds it, which is what it's doing now with its communist Chinese, Qatar, and Hamas network friends. Let us go to David, Los Angeles, California. 870 The Answer, our wonderful affiliate there. How are you?
Doing great. It's good to speak to you again, Mr. Levin.
Speak very loudly, right into the mouthpiece.
I used to go to UCLA quite a bit, even as a kid, 50 years ago when I was 11, and they've just destroyed the campus. I know the old protests when we had, protesting for peace, and, even when Bill Walton, the basketball player, protested, and we had that, but that wasn't against America. And what these people have done is vile, it's vulgar, it's dangerous. And so for the red-blooded Americans, I have a new meaning for the UCLA acronym. UCLA should be, you can leave America.
Amen.
Now, vamonos, hasta la vista, see you later, sayonara, get the F out.
You're 100% right. I mean, you hear a lot of these people speaking broken English. Where are they from? Why aren't they removing them? I'll tell you why they're not removing them. Because Joe Biden has brought them here. Barack Obama brought them here. They're part of the new Democrat Party base. They're voters. They're Democrats. And even though they're out there trashing Biden, they're going to vote for Biden. They're not going to vote for Trump. Trump's already denounced them. Trump has moral clarity. He's denounced them. He supports the cops. Did you hear Joe Biden today endorse the cops at all, David? I didn't hear that. Did you?
Never.
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 All right, brother. Thank you for your call. Good man. Let's go to Sharon in the Bay Area, California, the great KSFO. Sharon, how are you?
Hello. Thank you. Nice to talk to you, Mark. I'm so happy.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you for supporting Israel and the Jewish people.
Well, to me, supporting Israel and the Jewish people is like supporting America and the American people who are attached at the hip. I try to explain to people all the time, if you hate Israel, you hate America. If you hate America, you hate Israel. And we see it in our college campuses and universities today, pulling down the American flag, replacing it with the Palestinian flag, attacking our country, attacking our cops, talking about us being colonialists and imperialists. Our enemies in the Middle East are celebrating what these Hitler youth are doing on our campuses, celebrating it, giving aid and comfort to the terrorists. It's a disgrace, and the best Joe Biden could do, we timed it. How long was it, Mr. Producer? 3.5 minutes? 3 minutes and 15 seconds to say nothing. Coward who's relying on the Hitler Youth for his votes. Sharon, God bless you. I want you to know 80% of the American people support Israel. The latest survey, 70% support the Prime Minister's desire to take out the last remnants of Hamas in Raqqa. So God bless you, my friend. Just know the American people back Israel, even though the Democrat Party and their leaders back the enemy. It's that simple. Joe, Northern Virginia, Sirius Satellite. Joe, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing awesome, man. I just wanted to let you know that I've read every one of your books cover to cover, more than once.
Thank you.
My father loved you. Oh, my God, he loved you.
What was your father's name?
What's that?
What was your father's name?
Linwood.
Linwood. Did he pass recently?
He served in Korea, and he's got dementia now, so he's not really here anymore. But
I understand.
Everybody in my family is a veteran. Right through Vietnam, I served in Panama, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan before I retired. I was getting care in the community through the VA, but that doesn't exist anymore because those funds have been redirected to the illegal aliens.
Unbelievable.
So,
unbelievable. Sickening, as a matter of fact.
You know, my family believed I could make it, but now I'm down to 6 months.
Down to 6 months. Mr. Producer, can you get Joe's information, please? You going to be all right, Joe?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You're not thinking dumb things, are you?
No.
All right, just want to make sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see what we can do, Joe. We're going to see what we can do. Don't hang in there. It's the best I can say. Hang in there, Joe. God bless you, my friend. Another example right there. Here's a veteran. I couldn't even count how many theaters he's been in defense of our country. He's down to 6 months. Because Biden has moved benefits from the VA to illegal aliens. The Palestinians he wants to ship into the United States. The people he's flying into Florida and other states. Then when you look at the southern border, you know, even though Fox does the best job on the southern border, really what needs to be done is a full report on what's literally happening to all these women and children on the border. To expose what's taking place. To follow the women. To follow the children. To find the sex. What do you call them? The pieces of crap. The people who enslave these women and children and sell them in the sex rings. Traffickers, thank you. That's right, traffickers. With all the media we have in America, with all the money they spend, they would take 1% of the time that they trash Donald Trump actually doing something useful for this country, it would make a big difference. But MSNBC and CNN and the New York Times and the Washington Post are incapable of it. They're incapable of it. They support what's taking place on the border. They support what's taking place on our college campuses. That's exactly right. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's talk to Michelle, Roanoke, Virginia, on the Mark Levin app. Michelle, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Mark?
Good, thank
you. For taking my call. I wanted to talk about these little snowflake pukes that are in the colleges advocating Hamas and saying we are Hamas. Don't those terroristic threats, terroristic statements, don't they need to go to jail for that?
I think if they admit that they're terrorists and they're here on student visas, they should be removed. I don't know. We have people out there who are very confused about free speech. If somebody says, I'm Hamas, well, Hamas is at war with the United States. They're a terrorist organization. Why don't we take them at their word? I agree with you, Michelle. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, freedom fighters all over the world, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, our brothers and sisters in Israel. We have your back. The American people support you. We'll see you tomorrow.